Walter Boone did not end up on that road because he was lazy. He ended up there because his wife got sick, and he chose her. Every single time, without hesitation, without limit, without once asking what it would cost him. Ruth Boone had been the kind of woman who sang while she fried chicken on Sundays. 41 years of marriage. And then, in the spring of his 61st year, the doctors found the thing growing in her lungs. And the bills started arriving in envelopes that Walter stopped opening in front of her. He would take them out to the porch, sit on the step they'd painted blue together, and open them one at a time, like letters from a war. The car went first. A 2009 Buick with a cracked dashboard and a radio that only worked when you hit it. He sold it to a neighbor's kid for $1,100, and every cent of it went to Mercy General before the week was out. Then the garage. Then, quietly, so quietly that Ruth never knew, the corner of the backyard where he had planned to build her a garden. Ruth died on a Tuesday in October, holding his hand, telling him not to be foolish about money for the funeral. He was foolish about money for the funeral. And when it was all done, when the house was paid and the hospital was paid and the ground was paid, Walter Boone owned a mop, a lunch pail, a pair of boots resoled 3 times, and a job cleaning the Whitfield Tower from 6 in the evening until 2 in the morning. The night bus that used to run down Crenshaw Avenue had been cut 2 winters earlier. Budget decision. Nobody rode it, the report said. Walter rode it. Every night. He just rode it alone, so the spreadsheet never saw him. So he walked. 9 miles out, 9 miles back. In summer, he carried water. In winter, he carried a thermos of black coffee and a wool cap that Ruth had knitted him the last winter she was strong enough to hold needles. He never missed a shift. Not one. 19 floors of offices, bathrooms that shined like still water, trash bins emptied so quietly that the day people thought the building cleaned itself. And here is the thing about men like Walter Boone. They are invisible. Right up until the moment somebody finally looks. Somebody finally looked. Danielle Whitfield had not been driven by a driver in 26 years. She drove herself, always, in a midnight blue sedan with heated seats, because a long time ago she had promised herself that she would never again be cold and at the mercy of anyone's schedule but her own. She owned Whitfield Metro lines, 200 city buses, 400 drivers, contracts with 3 school districts and the airport. Her face had been on the cover of a business magazine under the words, "The Woman Who Moves This City." She had built the whole thing from one used minibus and a route nobody else wanted, the 5 a.m. hospital shift run. And she had built it for a reason she told no one at the office, and everyone at her father's grave. Elijah Whitfield had been a night watchman at a meatpacking plant 11 miles from their apartment. The winter Danielle was 17, the plant's shuttle program was cut. Budget decision. Nobody rode it. And Elijah started walking. He walked for 104 nights, so he walked. 9 miles out, 9 miles back. In summer he carried water. In winter he carried a thermos of black coffee and a wool cap that Ruth had knitted him the last winter she was strong enough to hold needles. He never missed a shift. Not one. 19 floors of offices, bathrooms that shined like still water, trash bins emptied so quietly that the day people thought the building cleaned itself. And here is the thing about men like Walter Boone. They are invisible. Right up until the moment somebody finally looks. Somebody finally looked. Danielle Whitfield had not been driven by a driver in 26 years. She drove herself, always, in a midnight blue sedan with heated seats, because a long time ago she had promised herself that she would never again be cold and at the mercy of anyone's schedule but her own. She owned Whitfield Metro lines, 200 city buses, 400 drivers, contracts with 3 school districts and the airport. Her face had been on the cover of a business magazine under the words, "The Woman Who Moves This City." She had built the whole thing from one used minibus and a route nobody else wanted, the 5 a.m. hospital shift run. And she had built it for a reason she told no one at the office, and everyone at her father's grave. Elijah Whitfield had been a night watchman at a meatpacking plant 11 miles from their apartment. The winter Danielle was 17, the plant's shuttle program was cut. Budget decision, nobody wrote it. And Elijah started walking. He walked for 104 nights, the beast. And there, at the mouth of the garage, half lit by the security lamp, was a figure in a brown coat, leaning into the wind, pulling a wool cap down over his ears. She knew him. Walter, the night janitor. 60-something, quiet, the one who left her office so clean it felt like forgiveness. She slowed the car, watched him walk to the edge of the property, turn left toward Crenshaw Avenue, and disappear into the white. The bus stop on the corner had a bench, no shelter, and no bus, not at that hour, not on that line, not since the city cut the night route. Danielle Whitfield sat in her warm car for a very long moment, because she knew that cut. Her company had bid on that route. Her operations team had advised against it. Low ridership, 1 regular passenger, runs at a loss, and she had signed the memo herself. She had cut the bus. The janitor walked because of a line she had signed. She drove home through the storm and did not sleep at all. She told herself she was just curious. That was the first lie. For 11 nights, Danielle Whitfield left the tower at 2 a.m., she who normally left at 7, and she watched a 63-year-old man walk into weather that made grown truckers pull off the road. She learned his rhythm. Night 1, he stopped twice to knock snow off his boots. Night 3, the wind knocked him sideways at the overpass, and he caught himself on the rail and just kept going. Night 6, a police cruiser slowed beside him, and Walter waved it on, and the cruiser left, and Danielle found herself gripping the steering wheel so hard her knuckles ached, furious at a man who would not accept a ride from anyone, the beast. And there, at the mouth of the garage, half lit by the security lamp, was a figure in a brown coat, leaning into the wind, pulling a wool cap down over his ears. She knew him. Walter, the night janitor. 60-something, quiet, the one who left her office so clean it felt like forgiveness. She slowed the car, watched him walk to the edge of the property, turn left toward Crenshaw Avenue, and disappear into the white. The bus stop on the corner had a bench, no shelter, and no bus. Not at that hour, not on that line. Not since the city cut the night route. Danielle Whitfield sat in her warm car for a very long moment, because she knew that cut. Her company had bid on that route. Her operations team had advised against it. Low ridership, 1 regular passenger, runs at a loss. And she had signed the memo herself. She had cut the bus. The janitor walked because of a line she had signed. She drove home through the storm and did not sleep at all. She told herself she was just curious. That was the first lie. For 11 nights, Danielle Whitfield left the tower at 2 a.m., she who normally left at 7. And she watched a 63-year-old man walk into weather that made grown truckers pull off the road. She learned his rhythm. Night 1, he stopped twice to knock snow off his boots. Night 3, The wind knocked him sideways at the overpass, and he caught himself on the rail and just kept going. Night 6, a police cruiser slowed beside him, and Walter waved it on, and the cruiser left. And Danielle found herself gripping the steering wheel so hard her knuckles ached, furious at a man who would not accept a ride from anyone. She ran the numbers like she ran everything. 9 miles. At his pace, in that cold, over 2 hours. He got home after 4. He slept at most 5 hours. Then he came back and made her building shine. On the 8th night, she asked her operations manager, Tessa Nolan, to quietly pull Walter Boone's file. What came back sat on her desk like an indictment. 22 years of janitorial work, perfect attendance. A commendation letter from 2011 for reporting a gas leak that the day shift had ignored. Next of kin, none listed. Address, a small house in a neighborhood her buses hadn't served in years. And then, at the bottom of the file, a benefits form, filled out in careful block letters. Under emergency contact, Walter Boone had written a name, Bernice Calloway. And beside it, in parentheses, 2 words, the nurse. Danielle found Bernice Calloway at Mercy General, 3rd floor, and what the nurse told her filled in the missing years. Ruth, the cancer, the car sold, the bills. And then Bernice said the thing that ended the conversation and started everything else. Mr. Boone sat with his wife every day for 7 months, the nurse said. And every night at 9 o'clock, he'd get up, put on his coat, and walk to work. Hospital social worker offered him a voucher for a hotel next door. Free. He said thank you, but his work was his word, and his word wasn't sick. That's a direct quote, Miss Whitfield. I wrote it down. In 26 years of nursing, you learn to write down the good ones. Danielle drove back to the tower through the beginnings of another storm, and she understood, with a clarity that was almost physical pain, that she had spent 26 years building a monument to her father's dignity, and had somehow never once asked a living man what dignity looked like to him. Tomorrow night, she decided, she would stop the car. On the 12th night, the wind chill hit 21 below, and Danielle Whitfield pulled her midnight blue sedan up beside Walter Boone at the corner of Crenshaw Avenue and rolled down the window. Mr. Boone, get in the car. That's not a request. It's below zero, and I own a transportation company, which makes watching you do this professionally embarrassing for me. Walter stopped, turned. Snow had frozen into his eyebrows. He looked at her the way a man looks at weather, patiently, without surprise. Evening, Miss Whitfield. I appreciate it. I'm fine. You are 63 years old walking 9 miles in a blizzard. That is the opposite of fine. Get in. I'll drive you home tonight, and tomorrow we will fix this permanently. I mean that. A car. I'll buy you a car, cash, tomorrow morning. Or a driver. Or... She heard her own voice climbing and made it stop. Mr. Boone, please, let me do this. And Walter Boone stood in the snow and was quiet for a moment, the way he was always quiet before he said anything that mattered. Ms. Whitfield, do you know the difference between help and handling? She didn't answer. Help leaves you standing, Walter said. Handling puts a hand on the back of your head and pushes you down, gentle, into the shape of somebody else's mercy. I've been handled before. By the hospital, by the bank, by folks who meant well and never once asked me what I was already doing about my own life. So I'll tell you what I told them. No, ma'am. And no is a whole answer.
The wind filled the silence between them. "You'd rather freeze," Danielle said, and it came out harder than she meant it, "than let anyone do anything for you. Is that pride? Because where I come from, pride is just fear wearing a good coat." And Walter smiled at that. Actually smiled, the first time she'd ever seen it. "No, ma'am," he said. "Pride is knowing the difference between being rescued and being robbed. A car from you cost me nothing but everything. Because the day I take it, I stop being the man who handles his life, and I become that old janitor the bus lady saved. People would tell that story at your dinners. I'd be the good deed in the good coat." He shifted his thermos to his other hand. "You asked what I'm doing about my own life. You didn't ask. Nobody does. You asked the file. The file's a summary, it's not the story." He turned back into the wind. "Locker 14, he said over his shoulder. "Maintenance level. You own the building. You've got the master key. If you want to know what I'm doing about my own life, it's in there. And ma'am? Yes? Drive safe. Roads are ugly tonight." He walked on into the blizzard, and the most powerful woman in the city's transit system sat in her heated car at a frozen intersection. And for the first time in 26 years of getting her way, she had absolutely no idea what to do next. She told herself she would wait until morning. That was the second lie. At 2:40 in the morning, Danielle Whitfield stood in the maintenance level of her own tower with the master key in her hand, in front of a dented gray locker with the number 14 stenciled in flaking white paint.
Inside, there was no money, no valuables. There was a clean, folded uniform, a photograph of a laughing woman, Ruth, obviously, taped to the inside of the door, a thermos, a pair of gloves drying on a hook, and a notebook. Thick, black, the kind that costs $2, swollen to twice its size with papers tucked between the pages. On the cover, in the same careful block letters as the benefits form, "The Nightline, a plan by W. Boone." Danielle sat down on the bench in the basement of the building she owned and read the whole thing. It was a business plan. Handwritten, 70-some pages, built over 4 years of lunch breaks and sleepless mornings. Walter Boone had spent 2 decades emptying the trash of the night shift world, and he had been listening to it the whole time. He knew every night worker in a 3-mile radius by name and by route. The dialysis clinic aides whose shift ended at 3 a.m., an hour after the last bus. The hotel laundry women who carpooled in a dying sedan. The bakery crew. The hospital transporters. The airport cargo guys. Page after page of tables. How many workers, where they lived, what a seat would need to cost. He had priced used 15-passenger minibuses at 4 auctions. Mileage, rust, transmission notes in the margins. He had a folder of signatures, over 200, from night workers pledging $3 a ride. He had drafted a route map in pencil, refined and erased and redrawn maybe a dozen times, and in the corner of the final version, he had written one line: "Ruth's ride," because nobody should have to choose between the job and the goodbye. And at the back of the notebook, clipped together, bank statements. Walter Boone, walking 9 miles each way, saving the bus fare, the car payment, the gas money he wasn't spending, had put away, dollar by dollar, over 4 years, $11,400 toward a minibus that auctioned for around 15. He was 8 months away, maybe less. Danielle closed the notebook and pressed it against her chest, and the thought that came to her was so clear it felt like her father's voice. He never needed a ride, Danny. He was building the whole road. There was a final page. She almost missed it. Tucked into the back cover, a single sheet, and on it, Walter had listed the risks, honestly, mercilessly, the way you only do when nobody is grading you. Insurance cost, my age, no business license experience, winter breakdowns. Need, a partner who knows fleet operations. And under that, underlined twice, Hard part isn't the driving. Hard part is finding someone who knows buses and respects passengers. Danielle Whitfield laughed out loud in the empty basement, alone, at 3 in the morning. She knew a few things about buses. She knew a few things about fleets. What she did not know, what the notebook in her hands had just taught her, was how many men and women like Walter her spreadsheets had described as low ridership and erased. She took the notebook home. She would return it before his next shift. She'd have Tessa make a copy first. She knew that was a gray area, and she did it anyway. And she did not sleep again that night either. But this time, it wasn't guilt keeping her up. It was arithmetic. The good kind. The kind her father used to do on napkins. The next night, at 1:50 a.m., Danielle was waiting at the corner of Crenshaw Avenue. Not in the car. Standing. In the snow. In boots she'd had to dig out of a closet because she hadn't owned a reason to wear them in years. Walter came out of the tower at 2, saw her, and stopped. "You'll freeze standing there, Ms. Whitfield. Then walk and talk with me. 1 mile. I've been inside buildings for 30 years. I could use the air. And before you refuse, I'm not offering you anything. I'm asking you something. Different verb." Walter studied her for a long moment. Then he did something he had never done in 4 years of night walks. He slowed his pace to match another person's, and they walked into the white together. "I read the notebook," Danielle said. "Locker 14. You told me to. I've broken into exactly 1 locker in my life, and I'm prepared to be judged for the copy I made." "You made a copy?" "That's either flattering or I should call a lawyer." "Walter, may I call you Walter? The Nightline works. I ran your numbers through my operations team this afternoon. Your cost per seat is right. Your route is right. Your risk page is the most honest document I have read since my father's letters. The plan is good. Not good for a janitor. Good, full stop. Which is why I am not buying you a car." "Appreciated. I'm offering a partnership. Whitfield Metro provides 2 retired minibuses, maintenance, insurance, fuel contract, driver training, licensing, the whole ugly back office you underlined twice. You provide the route, the ridership, the standards, and the name. 51% yours. Yours, Walter, majority, because it's your plan, and I finally understand what that word is worth. My 49% buys me exactly one thing: a seat at your table, and the right to learn how you got 200 strangers to sign a piece of paper, because I've spent $40 million on marketing and never earned that." The wind pushed at them. Walter walked 3 full blocks without speaking, and Danielle, who had closed 9-figure deals with less anxiety, led him. "Questions," Walter said at last. "Ask." "The drivers, my people. Night workers get hired at night wages? Fair ones? Set by you, in writing. The route. It goes where the workers are, not where the city looks good. You draw the map. I sign it. And when a reporter calls it your charity project, then I say, on camera, that I am the junior partner in Walter Boone's company, and I will enjoy saying it." Another block. The snow was letting up, the way it does just before dawn, going soft and slow like the storm had finally said its piece. "That's a condition of my own," Walter said. "The name stays. The Nightline. But underneath it, on every bus, small letters. Ruth's Ride. You get your seat at the table, Ms. Whitfield. My wife gets her name on the door." Danielle Whitfield stopped walking, right there at the overpass where the wind had knocked him sideways on the third night. And she did something she had not done at a negotiation in 26 years. Her eyes filled. "Walter," she said, "my father was a night watchman. He walked 11 miles because a shuttle got cut. And one night he sat down at a bus stop and didn't get up. I was 17. Everything I built angry at a world that let him walk. And then I signed the memo that cut your bus, because my spreadsheet said one rider wasn't a ridership. So understand me. You are not my good deed, and you were never my rescue. You're the man who walked into my blind spot 9 miles at a time and turned on the lights. I'm not saving you. I'm asking you to save me from ever signing a memo like that again." Walter Boone looked at her for a long time. Then he held out his gloved hand. 51-49, he said. "And Danielle? The handshake's warm. The hand inside it better stay honest." "The hand stays honest," she said, and took it. The Nightline launched on the first Monday of spring. 2 minibuses, painted deep blue, Ruth's Ride, in small silver letters under the name. 211 riders the first week. Walter drove the early loop himself and trained 4 drivers, 3 of them former night walkers, and the local news ran exactly the story Walter had predicted. Millionaire's charity bus. Until Danielle stood in front of the cameras and corrected the record with visible joy. "I am the junior partner in Mr. Boone's company. The name is on the door. His wife's, too." But that is not the night this story is about. This story is about the following December, when the beast's bigger brother came down out of the Arctic and ate the whole city. It hit at midnight on the worst night of the year. The grid failed district by district. The tower went dark at 12:40. And at 1:15, on a Nightline minibus stalled in a drift on Crenshaw Avenue with the heater dying and 6 passengers aboard, a young security guard named Marcus Reed, 24, second week on the job, walking to the corner to flag help because the radios were jammed, made Elijah Whitfield's exact mistake. He sat down at the bus stop to rest, just for a minute, just until the shaking stopped. It was Walter who missed him. Walter, counting heads the way he counted everything, who said, "Marcus went out 11 minutes ago," and took the flashlight and went into the white after him. He found the boy half buried at the bench, mumbling, unzipped. And here's what people don't know about hypothermia, what Walter knew, because a nurse named Bernice Calloway had once found him the same way, one bad night years back, and had refused to let the lesson die with the moment. The shaking stopping isn't recovery, it's surrender. Cold makes you feel warm right before the end. It makes you want to take your coat off. It makes you agree with it. Walter did not rub the boy's arms. Bernice's voice in his head. "Never rub, you'll push the cold blood to the heart." He got Marcus out of the wind, zipped him into his own coat, pulled chemical warmers from the kit he had insisted, line item over Tessa's budget objection, be standard on every Nightline bus. He pressed them to the boy's neck, his chest, his groin, the way the nurse had taught him. And then he held the boy against his own warmth and talked to him, non-stop, for 40 minutes, until the ambulance fought its way through. He told him about Ruth. He told him about the garden he never built. He told him, "You do not get to sit down, son, not on my route. My route, everybody gets home." At the hospital, at dawn, Bernice Calloway herself came out to the waiting room, gray-haired now, and found Walter Boone drinking terrible coffee under the fluorescent lights. "He'll keep all his fingers and toes," she said. "Core temp was 91 when they brought him in. Whoever warmed him did it exactly right. Slow, central, no rubbing. She looked at him for a long moment. Somebody taught that man very well. Somebody did, Walter said. A nurse at Mercy General. I wrote her name down once, on a form, under emergency contact. And Bernice Calloway, who had once written her own name on a form just like that, one bad night years back, smiled, pulled up the chair beside him, and stayed until the sun came up. 26 years of the good ones written in her notebook. Sat down next to the janitor who had become a bus line owner, and cried just a little. The way you do when a lesson you planted comes walking back through the door, carrying a life it saved. Danielle got there an hour later, straight from the Emergency Operations Center, still in the coat she'd slept in. She found Walter in the cafeteria and sat down across from him, and for once in her life, the woman who moved the city had no speech prepared. Marcus is going to be fine, Walter said. Bus is already pulled out. Route's running. Your 49% is safe, partner. Stop it, Danielle said quietly. Just stop. You know what the operations log will say tomorrow? 1 incident, 0 casualties. Protocol followed. A line in a spreadsheet. And what it won't say is that a 64-year-old man walked into a blizzard with a flashlight and pulled a kid out of the same cold that took my father, on the same street, at the same kind of bus stop. Her voice broke, and she let it. I built 200 buses to fight that cold, Walter. 200. And in the end, the cold was beaten by one man with warmers in his kit and a nurse's voice in his head, and a refusal to ever let anyone on his route sit down. Danielle, I offered you a car once. Do you remember what you told me? Help leaves you standing. I didn't understand it then. I thought generosity was the highest thing. But generosity is a gesture, Walter. What you built, the training, the kit on every bus, the standards, the protocol that Marcus is alive because of, that's not a gesture. That's a structure. Gestures make the giver feel tall. Structures keep other people standing. Some help is a hug. Real help is a wall that stands up in the storm. She reached into her bag and put 2 things on the cafeteria table. The first was a night watchman's badge, dulled by 50 years, the name E. Whitfield still readable if you knew to look. My father wore this for 11 years. I've carried it for 26, waiting to understand what it was actually for. I thought it was a wound. Turns out it was an instruction. She slid it across the table. It belongs on the night line, in the lead bus, where the route starts. The second thing was a single sheet of paper. Walter read it again, and then took off his glasses, which he only did when words deserved his bare eyes. It was a resolution, signed that morning by the full board of Whitfield Metro Lines. Every night route cut decision, present and future, now required a human impact review. Not ridership numbers, names. Who walks? How far? In what weather? And at the bottom, a new line of company doctrine, adopted unanimously, printed in the same font as the mission statement. Nobody rides alone. Nobody walks. Nobody's father. Nobody's mother. Nobody. One rider is a ridership, Danielle said. That's the whole law now. You taught it to a transit company. It took you 9 miles a night for 4 years to say it, and me 200 buses and 1 blizzard to finally hear it. But it's the law now. Walter folded the paper slowly, carefully, the way he folded everything, and put it inside his coat, over his heart. Ms. Whitfield, he said, and then stopped and started over. Danielle, the first night you stopped the car, you asked if it was pride. I never gave you the full answer. Here it is. When Ruth was dying, she made me promise I wouldn't let being poor make me small. She said, Walter, we may not have money, but we have the size of ourselves. Every night I walked, I was keeping that promise. I wasn't refusing help. I was protecting the size of myself until I could build something big enough to hold other people. That's what the notebook was. That's what the buses are. He looked at the badge on the table, at E. Whitfield, 50 years dulled and shining anyway. Your father didn't die for nothing, Danielle. You just couldn't see yet what he died into. He died into a promise. You carried it. I drove it. And tonight, a 24-year-old kid is warm in a hospital bed because of both of you. So no, I never needed your rescue. He put his hand, the glove off now, scarred and steady, flat on the table between them. Turns out I had to be the rescue. And you weren't a woman I could sell to. You were a woman I had to teach. Danielle Whitfield covered his hand with hers. No, Walter, she said softly. You weren't a man I could buy. You were a man I had to learn from. The Nightline runs 6 buses now. Blue, every one of them, with small silver letters under the name. On the lead bus, behind the driver's seat, there is a night watchman's badge in a small frame, and under it, a card that Walter Boone wrote himself in careful block letters, so that every driver who ever works the dark hours knows the whole doctrine before the first stop. Help leaves you standing. Handling pushes you down. Drive like everyone on board is somebody's Ruth, somebody's Elijah. Because they are. And at the corner of Crenshaw Avenue, where the bus stop once stood with a bench and no shelter, and a man sat down one night and never got up, there is a heated shelter now, lit all night, warm even when the beast comes back. On the glass, etched small, where only the people waiting in the cold will ever see it, there is one line. One rider is a ridership. So the next time you pass someone walking in the storm, before you reach for your wallet, before you make them your good deed, ask them what they're building. Ask to see the notebook. You might be offering a ride to the person who was about to teach you the road. If this story moved you, subscribe, because somewhere tonight, another Walter is walking, and his story deserves to be told next.